Military Murder is a true crime show that pulls back the curtain on true crime cases in the military. Some of these cases get media attention, while others are swept quietly under the rug. 2 years ago, the disappearance and subsequent murder of Vanessa Guillen placed military crime in the spotlight. Everyone was horrified that something like this could happen on a military installation. Vanessa's murder and her family's fight for justice brought these cases to the forefront, and that's where I pick up to tell you everyone else's story. As a 12-year veteran and former military attorney myself, I dig into cases just like Vanessa's, cases that occur around the world at the hands of soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen. But most of the cases I cover, you've never even heard of. New episodes of Military Murder are available every other Monday, and with over 100 plus episodes and counting, you will have plenty of content to binge. Now go on and listen to Military Murder Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to Reverie True Crime. I'm your host, Paige. The number of family members fighting for justice for their loved ones on a daily basis is astronomical. Recently, I was contacted by Catrina Marshall, who has suffered 3 major tragic losses in her family. One of those losses being one of her mother's sisters, who she was named after. I want to thank Catrina Marshall for bringing the story of her aunt to me and asking me to tell her story. There's a link to a change.org petition in the episode description that you can sign showing your support to reopen the investigation into Catrina Mowrey's death. This episode was made possible by Catrina Marshall, the niece of Catrina Mowrey. All the information that she provided me with, as well as the amazing blog, Stories of the Unsolved. Let's begin. The year was 1985, and it was a hot summer day in Dallas, Texas, June the 25th to be exact, when someone from the Casa 3 apartments at 200 South Marsalis Avenue caught a whiff of something pungent on their walk that day. This person, who some reports say was an apartment resident, followed the strange stench to a 1978 Ford LTD parked near an alleyway. Knowing she did not want to find out what was inside of this vehicle, she called the Southwest Station of the Dallas Police Department right away. When the police got to the scene, their noses were filled with the same awful smell as they made their way to the trunk of the vehicle and popped it open. Inside of the trunk, there was a decaying body that had been swathed in a tarnished white bedsheet. James and Catherine Mowrey gave birth to a beautiful baby girl they named Catherine on February the 5th, 1961 in Kansas. They also had 4 other children, Jim, Michael, Mark, Joan, and Deborah. As a young woman, Catherine was working at a country club where a bunch of ladies called her Catrina. She loved the nickname so much, she changed her name to it. When Catrina turned 18, she left Kansas for Texas, where she would live on her own and experiment with drugs, as so many young 20-somethings do. In June of 1985, Catrina was 24 years old. She and her sister Deborah had gotten into a dispute on the phone, and eventually, Deborah decided to hang up. Catrina had plans to drive to Kansas and visit her family. Deborah knew that everything would be just fine between them once Catrina made it there, and they would go on like nothing ever happened. Fights between sisters happen. This wouldn't be a reason for Catrina not to make the trip to Kansas, but when she never showed up, the only thing Deborah could possibly think might be wrong was that Catrina may have been more upset than she thought about their argument. Catrina likely decided to postpone the trip until she cooled off and just had not talked to anyone in the family about it yet. It had been a week or two since Deborah, or anyone in the family for that matter, and Catrina last talked when the body found in the trunk of that 1978 Ford LTD was identified by dental records. It was Catrina. Her body was so badly decayed after being bundled in a bedsheet in a hot trunk for 2 days, there was no way to identify any markings or wounds on her skin. Tests did confirm that she had not been sexually assaulted. The investigation into Catrina's death was handled poorly. At first, police wanted to say her cause of death was suicide, which makes no sense whatsoever. Oddly enough, a sergeant working homicide told the media there was evidence that Catrina had used cocaine before she died. When the toxicology report came back, however, Catrina was clean, which also made people backtrack on theories and reports of her death being caused by an overdose. Outside of a few tiny newspaper articles, Catrina's death was never circulated on news media outlets throughout Dallas, and a lot of people didn't know anything about her case. Taking a look-see around Catrina's apartment, investigators didn't find anything that would suggest foul play. However, sometimes the things that are left in their correct spots when they shouldn't have been should set alarms off as well. Catrina was legally blind without her contacts or glasses. They were both on her nightstand. There was no evidence that anyone forced their way into the apartment. It seems apparent this was not a suicide. She would not have even been able to drive herself to where she was without her glasses or contacts. And if someone didn't force their way into the apartment, wouldn't her death probably be caused by someone she was comfortable with? By the front door, her bags were still packed, ready to go see Deborah in Kansas. All of this points to Catrina having plans and being caught off guard by someone she probably knew. We have this conversation when it comes to Rebecca Zahau's tragic death. Women who commit suicide are likely never going to do it in a way that their bodies are made vulnerable and naked. Finding a deceased female's nude body is a strong indicator of homicide, according to a study where data was used from almost 120,000 homicides and suicides. What about the vehicle that her body was found in the trunk of? Well, her boyfriend was the owner of the car. He did have an alibi for the time of her death, which was said to be on June 23rd. He told the authorities that he had no idea his vehicle was even missing. Catrina always used it when she traveled back to Kansas to see her family, and he thought she had already taken off to see Deborah. The Dallas Police Department did not do much more investigating. As we know, an unfortunate fact is when someone uses drugs or is involved in sex work, is a minority, and so many other reasons that really make our blood boil, their deaths are brushed off like their lives did not matter. A lot of us keep saying, and we will until we leave this earth, nobody's life is more valuable than the next. All victims matter. I don't care what color their skin is, what they put into their body, what they do for money. That does not matter. People in positions of power need to start giving a shit. Rabia Chaudhry made the best point in our episode together when she said, "Clean house, go vote." Do your research on the people in positions of power in your state. Ask people you know who are good people who do advocacy work to run for certain positions. And another thing, the blue wall of silence has completely got to come down as well. No more protecting bad police officers. That all has to stop. Each day, more and more victims' deaths are being covered up or not investigated to the fullest because people think we're just going to keep taking it. We have to start showing them how serious we are, especially in our state elections. Catrina Mowrey matters. Amanda Pierce matters. Katie Palmer matters. Jacob Landine matters. Every person whose death has been brushed off as a suicide or given a cause of death that you know isn't right, and their killer is never brought to justice for one reason or another, all of those victims matter. In Catrina's case, her niece even said the investigators lied to them. They told the family they were looking into Catrina's case, but in actuality, they were not. Catrina's niece has tried to contact law enforcement, and they have always given her the runaround. I've seen the documents of interactions between them, and it's devastating. She had been talking to an investigator at one time who said he couldn't find Catrina in the database at all, and said that the Mowrey family had been passing stories around that were not completely true. From the blog Stories of the Unsolved, titled The Unexplained Death of Catrina Mowrey, which will be linked in the episode description, Catrina's niece talked about what she thinks may have happened to her aunt. Quote, "I never consider any theory off the table completely. However, it's possible it was somehow a situation where someone did panic and needed to hide her body. I'm also equally considerate to the fact that this was a homicide. I say that because of how she was found, naked, wrapped up like a burrito in a bedsheet, along with the fact that she was found across town from where she lived and could not have driven herself there because legally she was blind without her glasses or contacts, and both were still on her nightstand next to her bed while she was across town. Regardless, law enforcement failed to investigate, failed to bring justice or bring closure to my family. And sadly, not only did they possibly let her killer escape, but they also sentenced her sisters to a life of misery." End quote. Catrina's sister Deborah has said that the last person to see Catrina that she's aware of is a man they call Pee-wee. He and Catrina were good friends, and she sold him drugs. Some even thought Pee-wee fawned over Catrina. Unfortunately, law enforcement was never able to find him to ask him any questions. Not that we can be too sure how hard they looked for him, and nobody knows where Pee-wee might be today. Deborah's daughter started a petition on change.org where she stated, quote, "When an individual is the victim of a cold case homicide, families and friends want answers, justice, communication, transparency, updates, effort, support, and/or closure, including mine. My maternal aunt, namesake and immediate family member, Catrina Mowrey, was the victim of a brutal homicide in Dallas, Texas during the summer of 1985 and has yet to be given a second thought by law enforcement since. After numerous attempts to contact, communicate, request information, give information, and investigating this case on my own with minimal to no response, communication, or contact with any of the departments within the Dallas law enforcement divisions / departments or governing offices, I'm now forced to make this matter public in hopes of gaining the attention of the higher courts and officials to assist with getting some answers, justice, and most importantly, closure, and acknowledgement, as this has now, over the last 30 plus years, resulted in 3 sisters who are all dead, transpiring from this incident, including, most recently, my own mother. Deborah unfortunately completed suicide in November of 2020 after a very long, difficult battle with PTSD from not only her sister Catrina's horrible, unexplained death, but her other sister Joan, who was murdered in Dallas in April of 1993. Joan's case was thankfully solved. I want to thank Deborah's daughter, who she named Catrina in honor of her sister, for allowing me to share her aunt's story. I hope that her case is one day reinvestigated and whatever may have happened to her can be once and for all solved. Please, I am begging everyone to check the show notes for the change.org petition you can quickly sign. Please pass it around to your friends and family as well. I'll also have it posted on all of my social media accounts. If you have any information regarding this case, you can call the Homicide Unit of the Dallas Police Department at 214-671-3661 or its General Investigations line at 214-671-3503. Tips can also be sent to Catrina Marshall on Twitter at Catrina Marsh 91. That's at CATRINA MARSH 91. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and please stay safe and take care of yourselves.